In this problem, we're going to be writing the WordPairList method NumMatches, which will return the number of WordPair objects in all pairs for which the two strings match. Remember that a word pair is made up of two strings, the first and the second string. So basically, we're just checking to see how many word pairs within this WordPair array list have the same first word as they do the second word. So let's go ahead and write some pseudocode first. So this method NumMatches returns an int for the number of matches. So we're probably going to want to have some sort of variable to keep track of how many matches we have within our array list. So initialize a variable to keep track of number of matches. Okay. Then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually loop over our array list. So remember, we have this allPairs array list that keep track of all the word pairs. So we're going to want to loop through it, loop through all pairs. What we're going to want to do within that loop is we're going to want to grab the first word and the second word of each word pair and compare them. So grab the first word from the word pair, grab the second word from the word pair, and we're going to compare them. If they're equal to each other, that means that we found a match. So we're going to increment the number of matches variable if the two words are equal. And that's all that we're going to be doing within our loop. Finally, since this method actually returns an int, we're going to want to return that variable that we created to keep track of the number of matches. So return the number of matches. And that should be it for our pseudocode. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual code. Initializing a variable to keep track of the number of matches. Eventually, we're going to want to actually return this variable. And since the return type of this method is an int, since we're counting distinct number of matches, we're probably going to want to make this an int as well. So let's call it int matches. Let's set it equal to 0 because at the beginning we haven't found any matches. We haven't looped through the array list yet. The next thing we want to do is actually loop through all pairs. So for int I equals 0, I less than allPairs.size. Remember that this is how you get the length of an array list. This is slightly different than the way that you get the length for an array. Make sure to remember that. Or you could do for each loop if you want. I don't know. I feel very emotionally connected to for loops. So we're looping through each of the word pairs. So we want to grab the first word from the word pair. And honestly, we can grab the word pair as well. So let me add that. Maybe that'll help break the steps down a little bit. Grab the word pair at that index. So this is going to look like word pair is equal to allPairs.get at I. We grab the pair at that index. Now we want to grab both the first and the second word. Luckily, within the WordPair class, there are these handy-dandy getter methods, get first and get second, that'll just return the first and the second string. So let's go ahead and utilize those. So pair.getFirst. I want to save that into a string. And then the second word as well, string second equals pair.getSecond. Now we're going to want to compare them to each other. So you might be tempted to do something like this, where we're going to be using the equal signs. The reason why this won't work is because these two variables are strings. So we're actually going to want to opt in for the string method .equals to check for equality. So if first.equals second, that means that we found a match within our word pair object, and that means we want to increment the matches variable. So matches plus plus. That should be it for the logic inside of our for loop. So once we exit it, we can just return the number of matches. So return matches. And that about sums up our NumMatches method. You can go ahead and run through the example that's given to us in the problem. So right off the bat, we have 0 matches. We haven't found any yet. We go through from 0 to 10. We grab the very first word pair, so that one has the words the in red. We compare the first and second words, so the in red. Unfortunately, those two do not equal each other, so we move on to the next word pair, which is the and fox. Unfortunately, those two also do not match, so we move on to the next word pair, which is the and the. These two actually do equal each other, so we increment our matches. So now it's 1. We move on to the next pair, which is the and red. Unfortunately, those two do not equal each other. Move on to the next pair, which is red and fox. So red and fox. Unfortunately, those two do not equal each other. We move on to the next pair, which is red and the. Unfortunately, these two do not match each other. We move on to the next pair, which is red and red. Luckily for us, these two do match, so we increment our matches variable. Now we have 2 matches. We move on to the next pair, which is fox and the. Unfortunately, these two do not equal each other, so we have to move on to the next pair, which is fox and red. Once again, unfortunately, these two do not equal each other. We move on to the next pair, which is going to be our final pair within the for loop, which is the red. So the and red. Fortunately, once again, these two do not equal each other, and when we try to increment our I, now we've actually run out of pairs in this array list, so we're going to return the number of matches, which is going to be that 2, and that is exactly correct. As the problem statement says, if we called NumMatches on this WordPairList, we would expect it to return 2. If we get rid of the pseudocode, here is what our code looks like, where we're initializing a variable to keep track of the number of matches. We're looping through all pairs. We're taking a look at every single pair within that array list. We're grabbing the first and the second string that makes up that word pair. We're checking if they equal each other. If they do, we increment the number of matches. We do that for every single pair within our array list, and then we return the number of matches that we found. If we wanted to, simplify this code up a little bit, we could do something like this, where we just don't have these inline variables. You could do that again if you wanted with allPairs.getI. This gets a little bit less nice, but yeah, there's many different ways that you can format this. This is just one of the ways. Hopefully that helps you out with this problem. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll get back to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.